making Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar so happy with the response to a ban on country liquor in the state that he has now advanced total prohibition in Bihar by 6 months. That announcement was made today. So now there is a complete ban on alcohol in Bihar. This move will mean a revenue loss of more than 3,000 crores for the state, but it also raises questions on policing such a ban. How are you going to implement this is what many people are asking. The Chief Minister says this is the time for social change and that there will be no exemptions for bars and for restaurants. Well, we have Pavan Verma, Senior Member of Parliament from the JDU, joining us on the program. Mr. Verma, what would you say to the skeptics who believe and who say, and I think with enough evidence to back it up, that prohibition hasn't really worked even in a state like Gujarat, where it's been in force for decades, but where it's not that difficult to get alcohol?
No, I do admit that prohibition is not an easy policy to implement. But at the same time, political leadership is about catching the pulse of what the people want. Even before the elections in Bihar and certainly during the campaign, Mr. Nitish Kumar repeatedly and in overwhelming measure got a message from most people, including particularly women who form 50% of the electorate, that they would like a ban on the availability of liquor. It's not a popular decision. There's a loss of revenue. It's difficult to implement. We know past examples. But leadership is about responding to what the people want, not impulsively, but in a prepared manner, putting in place an administrative framework so that a policy which the people want can be implemented with their cooperation and support, so that there is the minimization of the breach of law. That is what is being implemented in Bihar, and I'm happy to tell you that this policy has received an overwhelming and enthusiastic response from the people of Bihar.
And interestingly, from the opposition as well, because I think this is one issue on which political parties find it difficult to take a contrarian view. Dilip Cherian is here in the studio with us. And Dilip, you don't agree with this. And why is that? Pavan Verma says we know it's going to cause a loss of revenue. He's also right in saying that, women voted, for instance, in large numbers for Nitish Kumar. And this has been a demand, an election promise that Nitish Kumar made as well. He's going through with that. Why are you skeptical?
I'm skeptical for the same reasons that Pavan agreed, that it is a difficult thing to manage. Across Indian states, it's failed so far. There is no single case, at least in India, of it being successful. Now, Mr. Kumar, and Pavan has highlighted that in the past, has in a sense set the social agenda by trying to convince people and making sure that they are participating in this process of imposing prohibition. But I think imposition in itself is something I don't think we don't want a state to act like a nanny state. That's my first objection. I don't think the state needs to start by deciding what you eat, what you wear, what you drink, and what you chant. And I think there is a serious objection to that. But having said that, there's also the big issue that about 17% of Bihar's revenues comes from excise on liquor. So the fact is that taxes on liquor are a large part of the Bihar budget. What is the implication, and has Mr. Chief Minister thought through what happens in terms of this gap that will exist? And the third thing is that everyone knows that the beneficiaries of this are very often the establishment, and the losers are the very poor who die of huge accidents.
So, Pavan Verma, very important points raised there. If you could answer them one by one. The government shouldn't be a nanny state and shouldn't be telling people what to eat or drink. That's the first point Dilip Cherian has made. Is there something wrong with the principle of this?
No, of course the principle is right, that people should have freedom of choice. But I'm sure it's nobody's argument that where the welfare of the people is involved in a verifiable manner, the government cannot choose policy instruments to pursue it. It is one thing to say on the basis of blind faith or ritual that according to our belief and without any other sanction, you must behave in a certain manner. And it's quite another to assess what is the level of social damage being done by the availability of a particular substance and to try and regulate its access and its availability. Prohibition is not something other states have not tried. The challenge before Bihar is to try and implement the policy of prohibition on the demand and response of the people in a manner which minimizes the otherwise expected pitfalls of the policy of prohibition, with which I don't disagree with Dilip. And therefore, it was not implemented immediately on the day after the elections were won, although it was a poll promise. It was a poll promise, but there was a gap of 4 or 5 months where there was very intensive homework done with the administration, with the police, with NGOs to try and see how you can implement a policy of prohibition in a manner which minimizes the other consequences that have been seen of such a policy. And I am happy to tell you, Nidhi, that a whole set of measures are in place, including toll-free numbers, CCTV cameras, the cooperation of self-help groups, a method of reporting, responsibilities being fixed, the fullest cooperation of the administration and police, and so on and so forth, including retributive measures such as, for instance, the death penalty for illicit brewing of liquor. Now, let us see how the policy
unfolds. The question is
unfolds.
whether that would be a deterrent.
Let
because
us
the
not
law is,
prejudge.
you're right, the law is
If
very tough in Bihar. The law is very tough. No, you're right. The law is tough, and they have introduced this death penalty for anyone found making, illicit liquor. But do you think that will be a deterrent? Because the question of illicit liquor is one of, the problem of that is one of the biggest problems you see, for instance, in Gujarat and elsewhere.
The new government of Nitish Kumar has just about managed to shake off the worry that we have of the badlands of Bihar becoming the badlands again. This is a state which has organized gangs. It has a lot of illicit arms, and therefore illicit liquor is bound to be a factor of life. I hope it is not. In fact, I wish we could wish it away. But the fact is that the police, the taxation officials are very often mixed up in this because they are beneficiaries in this process. It is true that women and children would support this, but I think that what Nitish Kumar has to figure out is that, as I said, the tax implications, the loss to the exchequer, and is this his big piece of social action, or is there more that he wants to do in a prohibitive kind of manner?
Pavan Verma, there is actually, interestingly, a report that the WHO prepared in 2014, and it was a report on alcohol and health. It said that 50% of the alcohol that's consumed in India is unrecorded. It's part of the counterfeit activity that takes place. This was just, just less than 2 years ago. It argued that measures such as prohibition led to excessive restrictions, creating risks to consumers, constraining consumer freedoms, and basically allowing the black market to flourish. Now, this is the WHO's warning on what prohibition can do. I'm sure this is something, as you said at the beginning, you understand the challenges, but this really is something you need to be worried about.
No, we are fully aware of the challenges. And I am not saying that prohibition is an instrumentality of state policy which is easy to implement, but Nidhi, please understand. Leadership is about taking a response to requests made repeatedly by the overwhelming mass of your populace. The people have come to Mr. Nitish Kumar and said that we would like a ban on liquor because the social consequences of its access and availability are damaging lives across the state. The poor are consuming their disposable income. There is a great deal of social familial dysfunction. There are consequences to health, and therefore a decision has been taken in a measured and planned manner. And let me add that it is probably going to be easier to implement because it is not an imposition. It is a response to what the people want. Let us not prejudge the policy. And as far as the badlands of Bihar, I'd like to inform, just a last point. Okay.
No, I'm just asking, why not give licenses to restaurants? Why a blanket ban?
Dilip. Yeah, I'll tell you. I'll answer that question as well, but just to first comment on my good friend Dilip's comment. about the badlands of Bihar. They ended more or less in 2005. And for the last 10 years, if there is one thing that Mr. Nitish Kumar can take pride about legitimately, is the return of law and order to Bihar. It is not, it's a decade now. And there's a system in place which can monitor illegality and curb it. As far as your question, why not licenses? I said this is a policy as now unfolding. If it needs a review, we will consider it. But right now, I believe in accordance with his poll promise and more importantly in accordance with what the people of Bihar want, he's implemented a policy of total prohibition and planned and taken measures to ensure its effective implementation.
I think the other point that we are all forgetting is that if we start creating these enclaves of prohibition, then for example, a visitor traveling to India, a tourist, or even somebody who is looking at investing is actually going to be concerned, because these are things that many people globally consider part of their normal life. It's not about getting drunk and beating your wife, which is what the allegation of the women who have been suffering under this for many years is. But I think that at a certain level, globalization also involves and industrialization also involves allowing certain normal rights of people to not be impeded.
Well, interesting arguments there, and I think, Pawan Verma, the Bihar government will certainly be tested over the next few weeks and months to see how this is implemented on the ground and whether, as you say, that there are strict measures in place and people are cooperating. It's interesting how so many people have actually taken a vow not to drink alcohol. So if that actually is followed through, that would be something.
More power to them.
More power to them, and that would certainly make headlines. Thank you very much to both of you for joining us on the program.